Okay, everybody take a nice big deep breath and let it all go. I am here only to be truly helpful. I am here to represent him who sent me. I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do because he who sent me will direct me. I am content to be wherever he wishes, knowing he goes there with me. I will be healed as I let him teach me to heal. Amen. All right, so I don't know, before the class started, we were discussing a little bit about the idea that our bodies aren't really who we are, and how we see and hear and feel and experience really aren't telling of what our true nature was. So does anybody have any further discussion about that before I go into what we're going to work on? And I guess not. So we will begin on text. Let's see what page. I got it marked on one page, but not the other page, and I got all kinds of pages here. Let's see, where is it? It's text 11, section 10:17. Let me see. All right, it would be on page number 329 in the text. And we started reading this last week, and this was actually a section that was written, Helen took down right at New Year's. And since we're obviously in the new year, I thought we would talk a bit about that. So again, this is paragraph number 10, and we'll start at the beginning. So this is the time in which a new year will soon be born from the time of Christ. I have perfect faith in you to do all that you would accomplish. Nothing will be lacking, and you will make complete and not destroy. And I'm just going to stop right there before we go on. So again, this is the time of the new year, and this little section is actually suggesting that this, our New Year's beginning, let's start this new year different than other New Years by really sticking to what the Course is talking about, or at least put that, in the forefront of what you're experiencing. And yes.
Excuse me, do you have a page number? Does somebody have a page number?
Or did somebody else get that? All right, let's see. It's
329.
329, paragraph 10.
She said, this day or all day.
Okay, and then the next line says, I have perfect faith in you to do all that you would accomplish. And that's Jesus speaking to us. And he's basically saying, guys, you're right. You're ready. Let's get going here. Let's get this process moving, because I know you can accomplish this if you put your mind to it. Nothing will be lacking, and you will make complete and not destroy. And be very aware that literally, when we're choosing for the ego, we are making destruction. We are literally aligned with the opposite of our true nature. And when we do that, we're literally living in an experience of destruction versus making the connection with our completion. And I think one of the challenges with the Course over many other spiritualities is that it's very inclusive. It's you're either choosing for the ego, or you're choosing for the Holy Spirit. There's no third or fourth choice. And if you're aligned with the ego, you're literally aligning with the opposite of who you are. And that's a little hard, I think, especially for new people. And I know I struggled with that a great deal initially, because we like the kind of gray section where I'm not bad, I might be a little bit bad, but I'm not really bad. And the Course is not really saying good, bad. It's saying you made a choice that is not bringing you what you think you need or want. And that choice brought you the opportunity to be an individual, to be special and different, but it left love behind. And when it starts to dawn on us that we want love, we want to fill that place in our heart where love lives, and we keep looking for it in a place that it doesn't exist, we become weary of searching for it there and finally give up our arms and begin to choose to look for it where it actually is. All right, so then he says, and I'm going to read something that Ken had to say in regard to what I'm going to read next. And he said, this is what we want to say, especially when tempted to say the opposite. Without guilt or judgment, we look at the ego temptation to attack, realizing that the following words will make us truly joyful and give us peace. So basically what we're going to be sharing, or I'm going to be reading, is going to begin to lead us to peace. And also that anything we do different than what these words are is going to lead us in the opposite direction. Unfortunately, for most of us, unbeknownst to us, because we didn't realize that choosing for the separation and then popping into the world and playing the game of the effect of the ego was going to literally continue to reinforce the opposite of what and who we really are. And as he says, this is what we want to say, especially when tempted to say the opposite. So I want everybody to just visualize a moment, maybe a confrontation with somebody in your life, either one that you've had before or one you may be going through right now. And as I'm reading these words, I want you to feel within how those words make you feel. Are you in compliance with these words, or is your self running the opposite direction, I guess you could say. Okay, and the words or the prayer is, I give you to the Holy Spirit as part of myself. I know that you will be released unless I want to use you to imprison myself. In the name of my judgment, in the name of my freedom, I choose your release because I recognize that we will be released together. So, with that little internal experiment, how many of you felt like you were willing to turn over whatever experience that you had in that mental issue and freely give that person or that situation over to the Holy Spirit? And how many of you were still clinging to, but wait a minute, they did something so wrong, I can't let them in and offer that to them. And I think it's really important as we read through this particular section, which is an amazingly beautiful and very healing section, that most of the time, we're really not going to be willing to offer this to our brother because we still are invested in being right and somebody else being wrong if I'm right. And so I would suggest, if that's where you are, that you go through all the contortions you need to go through of holding on, yelling, screaming, kicking, or whatever it is that you are truly experiencing in relationship to this, and be aware that that is where I am at this moment. And even in that step, you're being very honest, you're not denying your experience, and you become very aware that maybe I'm not quite ready to connect fully in love because I still choose to hold grievances. And then you can always then ask to be shown how to come to a point where you can clearly see your brother, or be willing to see your brother through the eyes of oneness versus the eyes of duality. Be very aware when we chose separation, it represented duality, two, more than one. Over here, we're all the same, it's one. So when he says, I give you to the Holy Spirit as part of myself, most of us don't see our brother as part of myself. But if we really got that both of these characters are coming from my mind and the mind of the ego that chose for separation. So then we projected that into the world, making this character be who I think I am, and this character something outside of me or different from me. And again, this character can be a person, a place, a situation, an experience. But for now, just use it as a person. But
Marianne,
yes, go ahead, Andrea.
I just wanted to say that when you read the prayer, when I read the prayer, I'm willing and I'm thinking, and then that's about it. So then when things happen, it doesn't present itself that same way. It comes at me like a freight train or something.
Absolutely.
It doesn't have that same feeling of I could choose. It just says, look at this.
Yes, yes. And I'm not sure if you were on the call yet, but I mentioned a few minutes ago that the ego's job is like a vacuum cleaner to pull us in to this thought system, not because the ego has power, but because we have given the ego that power by continually choosing for it. So it's literally just bringing back, doing to us what we asked it to do. But you're absolutely right, Andrea. We can go through and read a workbook lesson and we sit there and, oh, isn't this beautiful and it's wonderful. And, I'm just going to respond out of love, as Tashara was saying earlier. But when something happens, bam, I'm over there, looking for the jugular because I'm going to snap that person's head off like a tiger in the woods. And
well, it doesn't come in on the same wind. It's, like Mary Poppins, it comes in on a different wind, I think. And last week when Beata was talking about that when something occurs, and I could remember, and it just made me laugh because like something occurs and you're, instead of going to the Holy Spirit, you're going like, what, this can't be right. How could this be right? And then you tumble into it. Like then you have to grab onto it like a life raft. If I've been using it and reading it, and then I can grab onto it like a life raft. But initially it's like, wait a minute, this can't possibly be a part of what they were talking about.
Exactly.
and that was just so interesting to hear her say that, and to, like just when you're all ready to be, the perfect example of the Son of God and all that, then somebody comes in with some kind of amazing crap you can't even imagine you were ever supposed to do. And then when you turn it over, if you can, as fast as you can, you're just supposed to change your shirt and then things will be fine. And that's interesting. I just felt the full impact of that last week when we were talking about that. Like, oh, if you just you can change your shirt.
Yep.
Oh, sure. Well, and what's that going to do? But at least we're past that. Like, that's the truth. Like, the truth is very simple. We don't have to go out on a limb and preach about, oh, we did this, and then Jesus told us that, and then God came down on a pillow from the sky. I mean, it's just the simplicity of just like, so we actually change, like by changing our outlook on the world, we can change that. But we have to ask first, because it doesn't come like that in a sealed envelope what to do. Thank you.
Definitely. And in this process, if you're brand new to this, most of us get very confused of what the course is even talking about. And as we continue to understand it more and more, then we begin to practice it more and more. But it's still a struggle, because this is the programmed, deeply seated addiction that we hold, again, not because the ego is an entity outside of us, but because we have reinforced it over and over and over. And we know that anything that we do that becomes a groove, it's very hard to pull ourselves out of that groove, because I don't have to work hard at the groove. It just goes around and around and around. But much like if you break your right hand and you're right-handed, and all of a sudden you have to learn how to write with your left hand. First of all, you're not happy about the idea that I broke my arm, and then I'm not happy about the fact that I have to learn how to write with my left hand. Well, in a way, that's exactly what this is about. This is natural. This is normal. This is the flow. It's just that this does not bring us what we really want any longer. So that means I got to do something different. And what is different is I have to become aware of the fact that this does not serve me anymore. I thought I was getting something really good by choosing for the ego. I'm in charge, man. I'm the ruler. I'm on the throne. but I lost the concept and the understanding and the connection of love. And as we become aware
And
that
they-
that doesn't work for me anymore, then when you start to hear ridiculous things like what we're reading here, you start to think, oh, then maybe this is going to lead me to that other way he keeps promising me. And then the willingness begins to increase.
Well, also it's the tricky part is that when you ask the Holy Spirit for help, you're asking for the highest thing you can do with what you have in the moment. Really, you're asking. You still have to play ball with the ego. It's like the ego comes up and says, "Put on a new shirt." That sounds like bullshit when you've already gone through this baloney with your body and you're not real and all that. And yet the message comes and says, "Just change your shirt if you spilled coffee on it." So it's very because you're using the world for a different purpose. And
Absolutely.
you can't just jump out of the world. You have to, maybe you could have a list by your bed that says, if I spill on me, I should just put on a new shirt, but you're not going to look at that either. So I guess it's just very interesting that, because it doesn't sound like a truly miraculous idea. It just sounds like, oh, well, sure, any lunkhead would know to put on a new shirt if they've got a coffee on their shirt. But it doesn't sound like it's not like one of those, the voice that comes from the sky and says, oh, you are my beloved daughter or son, and you're waiting for some kind of like drum to roll or something, and the answer is just very simply to cope with it from the Holy Spirit's point of view, to cope with whatever. And perhaps you'll put on a new shirt, but maybe not until after you stomp around and, swear a lot. And then, perhaps you'll finally think of that. But I guess it seems like the Holy Spirit's messages come out with very mundane answers, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And but if they bring peace, they bring conciliation, they bring the whole thing to a close finally.
Yes. And I think the thing that I kind of chuckle with the Course is, there are a couple suggestions of how to practice this, but we want formulas. Even though as egos, we balk at formulas or having somebody tell us what to do, the Course goes the total opposite extreme. It doesn't give us suggestions on what to do. And
Right.
It's almost as though when we have a reflection of a choice for truth that comes forth, it's something that just comes. It's very, as you said, very subtle. It doesn't have a formula, but it's the person that receives that experience knows that this is coming from a different place than what I would have chosen. And oftentimes people will share experiences and they will say, well, I would never have thought of that as an answer. Never. And
Right.
it's just something, be honest. Or in a very simple thing like Rose shared from last week where, just change your shirt. Not a big deal, no fireworks, no, whatever. But just these subtle awarenesses of I'm on the right track and this is what you do. Versus always
it solved the problem. It very simply solved the problem with what was at hand.
Yeah.
But what I saw that there was no problem.
Well, okay.
There was no problem to solve.
Right.
That
Right.
was the answer of change your shirt.
Right.
Yeah.
That's how it affected me. And how I practice the Course now, because it's getting down to a little more subtle stuff for me, is everything that I'm doing, because Byron Katie says, I thought revelation was a burning bush, but it really is do the dishes.
Yeah.
How am I relating to the dishes, the water, the soap?
Yeah.
How am I relating to whatever it is that I am doing in this moment? Where am I coming from? That's what I'm aware of.
Yes.
And it's everything and everybody.
And that's the miracle.
Yes. And again, that That takes some time to get to the point where we understand unequivocally that literally the whole world is telling us a story, and we have an option to fall into the ego way of seeing it, or slowly come to an awareness of, choosing a different perception of what's going on. And, Ram Dass wrote the book, Before Enlightenment, Chop Wood and Carry Water. After Enlightenment, Chop Wood and Carry Water. Doesn't mean I'm going to become this strange, unusual thing. I'm just going to do everything from a place of peace instead of a place of attack. And Andrea mentioned earlier the idea of we use the world for a different purpose. We still act out in the world and do stuff in the world, but who's running the show? Who's the puppeteer? Is it the ego or is it the Holy Spirit? And the way
we don't have to well, so we don't run around the house with no clothes on because we're angry.
Right. Well, I mean, we met
somehow
for a while.
or somehow that was that was the logical answer. That was the whatever that was the on the physical plane. That was the answer, without it being. But it had a spiritual glow to it, I guess, or a letting go, like you said, Rose. And the other thing you had said was that when you were angry, there were no options. That there was no peace, was not to be found there. You couldn't find peace in that option where you were angry, and that that was like it wasn't available. That's what you said, that peace was not available as an answer when you were mad. Thank you.
Yeah. And be very aware, if I'm over here, peace doesn't live here. Okay? Peace only comes through over here. And when I keep dropping this and asking to align with this, eventually that peace will become who I am, or at least who I am more frequently than just the ego. And literally, when we, Ken's wife used to always kind of joke and say, when we chose for the ego, we became brain dead. We totally forgot that this existed, and we live completely over here. Automatically. I don't have to work at being an ego. It's chop, 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 chop. And that's why as you begin to practice the course and then something comes in, it comes in, just like that. It's not like you get a little note that says, okay, 2:00, someone's going to attack you and you now be prepared. No, that's not how it works. You're going along and then bam, something hits you and we begin to react just like a good little ego on planet Earth, because that's just representing that we're still very enmeshed in the response of the ego, because that's what's running the show. And as we begin to ask to see it different more and more frequently, we're going to begin to become more of this and less of this. But it's a process, and a process that we have to, as I think Denise said before the class today, she said, I'm becoming aware that I need to make this a priority in my life. I don't just do the course on Saturday afternoon. I need to become aware that this is my mindset during my day. I might forget, but I can bring it back. Is this really what I want more than anything else? And, this is not a test or anything, but if you begin to become aware that the results that you're having aren't feeding you any longer, then the motivation will begin to increase, and your desire to continue to connect with an answer begins to dawn on us. But don't be surprised if the ego still doesn't have a lot of juice going, because we gave it a lot of juice.
Well, then sometimes there's a reaction, since practicing, I guess, more, or just being around us more all the time, that sometimes if something comes up in my daily life, it feels like the hot stove.
Sometimes.
It feels like a hot stove, and it makes me move away from it more quickly. Like I recognize it. I recognize it as the no. I guess immediately go, oh no, here we go, and then just go, ask for help. So that's the upside of it all. Is it that, like how what Rose said, with her shirt, that you know, if something happens, I'm like, okay, I see, hold it, you know, hold everything, you know, and ask and ask. And so that's the upside of it, you know, being more available and being more, uh, just you know, messing with it more. You know, it's always coming to mess with you, and then you go, oh, wait a minute, I'm done messing, and then you know that. So then that's the upside of the study. Okay,
Well,
thank you.
correct. And that comes as a result of you putting in the work of continuing to ask as frequently as you can remember to do so. And then, as I said, eventually this starts to come in where, you know, as you said, something starts to rattle over here, or the stove gets too hot or whatever, and you immediately go, wait a minute, we're not staying here. I'm going over here. But initially, it's going to take a little bit of practice to get to the point where that becomes a little bit more automatic. But it will begin to work that way as we keep holding true to it.
You know, in the beginning, we have to have those, what is those explosions? And,
That's true. Yeah.
and I agree. Thank you. Because it takes a while before we get to where Rose talks about those subtle ones where, you know, and I think Helena shared something about blueberries and, you know, dust under those little subtleties, because I mean, it's a serious safari. It's a serious fucking safari. You know, and all kind of shit is moving all, you know, all the time.
You got it. But we also need to come to the awareness that what I see here is what I want to see here, because I made a pact with my ego to stay here. So, you know, unbeknownst to Marianne is the character in the dream, I don't think I asked for this or I want this, but via the choice for separation, this is what we are asking for. And again, that's why it's so valuable for us to continue to observe, to become aware of, oh, this is what I get when I choose for this. And eventually it's going to dawn on us, you know what, not interested any longer. Thank you very much. But again, practice, 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 which is what, you know, it's called the Course of Miracles. It's a course. That's how we learn and grow, is to continue to practice. All right, so I'm going to go back to that first line of the prayer, and I want you to think of like Hitler, or, you know, whatever character that you think of that you can't even imagine that you would want to consider as being part of yourself. As I read that line, I give to you, to the Holy Spirit, as part of myself. How many of us really feel spiritually mature enough to do that for every single person in our lives? And I would guess the answer is none of us, because there's someone or something that still holds us very strongly over here.
It depends on the day.
Well, and it can depend on
and the moment.
You're absolutely correct. And Denise, yes, that is so true.
Sometimes I could do it. Some days I could do it. Today I could do it. You know.
Yep.
Probably not tomorrow, but
yeah.
Maybe not at 5 o'clock.
Correct. Yes. And what this prayer is actually leading us to is an experience where no matter who, what, how, when, where something hits us on the head, that our natural response would be, of course I would give it over to the Holy Spirit, without question. And to begin to observe the moments, the time, the experiences when, no, there's no way I'm ready to give that over to anybody. I'm having fun with this right now. I'm right, they're wrong, and I'm going to prove it to you. But there will come a time where that shift will begin to occur, because we can't tolerate the pain that we put ourselves in. But again, Jesus is asking us to be extremely honest with ourselves. Don't fool yourself into, oh, I'm just going to say the prayer and everything is cool. Be honest with where you are at the moment. Be willing to look in that level of, right now I can't do that. If indeed that's where you are. Some of you might be in a place where you're willing to let it go no matter what happens. But most of us are still wavering back and forth, and Some of us are sticking closer to this side. But understand, and we read last week the couple sections about when we hold our brother here, we're like the jailer in the jail, in the prison, and the prisoner can only stay in the jail as long as the jailer is there with them. We cannot be released as one over here. I can't flip over here unless I bring my brother with me, because as I said before, literally my brother and I are coming from my mind. And if I'm aligned with the ego mind, both of us are identified with our ego and are playing the ego game. And for me to step over here, it literally means I can't leave my brother over here to get over here. We're a one-man show. And again, just become aware of any resistance that you might have within you to be able to do this. And don't kid yourself, and don't deny it. Be very brutally honest with it. And you can always ask to see it through his eyes, or ask him to show you how to see it through his eyes. Because right now, no way can you come to that position.
So how do you do that jailer thing with pain, physical pain?
Well, but the physical pain is literally no different than any of the other things we're talking about. The physical pain is what I want because I'm too afraid of the love of God.
That the physical pain is a mental pain.
Right. It's always coming from your mind. It's not, because again, a puppet does not have pain. Okay? We might, puppeteer him so he goes, oh. But the puppet does not have pain. The pain comes from the belief that the puppet is who I am.
That years ago, that I had proved to myself that the pain is only in the mind. I went to the doctor at the Cleveland Clinic, and the doctor was going to take some fluid from my back, and this was very painful. And at first he done it wrong, and he had to do it again. And I said, "Oh no!" And he motioned for the nurse. And the nurse came over, held my head in her lap, ran her fingers through my hair. I felt no pain.
Wow.
No pain.
Yep.
And Jason, just plug pain into the first line that Marianne just read from the book. I give you, to the Holy Spirit as part of myself. I'm giving the pain.
Right.
And if I want to use pain to imprison myself, I'm free to do that.
Yeah.
Until I'm willing to make another decision.
Yeah. And the tricky thing with this is, and we talk a lot about the iceberg, and this is the investment we have in the ego. I'm only aware of a little itty bitty tiny peak of that. But this is really what's been invested in, what's running the show. So Jason, you might do that prayer, and you might do that prayer wholly with every part of your heart, but the pain may still maintain itself. And it's not that you're not doing what is being asked of you. You're not doing it as fully as you could possibly do it this time. But the investment in the need to have the pain continues because of the depth of the programming of the ego. So every time you have that experience, you can continue to call on asking the Holy Spirit to, see it through his eyes instead of what you're seeing. But there are, times like when you're working on some of the workbook lessons where you might practice one of the workbook lessons and poof, whatever the problem was in your life, it can go away. But then you apply that to, say, your child or your spouse or your parents, and you keep hacking away at that one, and that one just won't crack. Well, it's because the investment in that particular relationship is so deeply seated that it's not fully able to be released, because there is something so much deeper than our conscious awareness allows us to understand or see. But every time we ask to see it different, we ask to connect with truth, part of that's literally being erased or taken away. And we're just being asked to continue to work through that process. And then one day, all of a sudden, you might see someone that really pissed you off, and all of a sudden it's like all that attachment just melts away, and you suddenly see that person from a totally different perspective. But that may take many times of practicing and asking before that occurs.
Excuse me, Marianne, what we're doing is learning to befriend our pain.
Absolutely.
Anything else, any other demon that comes up with us. And instead of seeing it as the enemy or something to attach to or get into combat with, you know, I could say, all right, what do you got? What are you here to show me?
Yes.
I can just like hold my arms out and say, you know,
Welcome.
let's dance. Let's see what's going on here.
Correct.
I welcome you.
Yes, yes.
And the answer being as simple as change your shirt. You know, I've had many, a multitude. Ego loves that avenue with me, illnesses. But what I've learned through the years is, you know, they're my private explosions. And they're all linked, and finding them, and I plant them in people. Oh, she makes me sick, you know. Every time I see her, you know, it just disturbs my stomach. And I have, you know, gastric issues. Huh? You know, we don't, I really appreciate the chart, Marianne. You know, we don't see how deep this unconscious shit is going on, what's going on up under this iceberg.
Yeah.
And isn't it like, if you're suffering from pain, that's an indication that something isn't right. And so then you get to explore that concept and explore that pain. If you have a pain where most people say you might have an appendicitis, then the Holy Spirit might tell you to call the doctor. Or, I mean, that's the beauty of it. Like when you say, okay, I have this pain and this is my pain and I've had this pain for years and years, it's just the same old story. And it's a very boring and also not real story, because you haven't asked the Holy Spirit what to do. You've decided this is something that you have, and you have to suffer with it, and you know, you oh my lumbago, or oh my this and that. And when I got to the bottom, luckily it wasn't appendicitis. You know, when I got to the bottom of the sciatic nerve, I found it was all emotional. It was like I could control it. It would hurt in my sleep, and I wouldn't be doing anything. And I just kept like, you have to get to the bottom of all this pain and all this stuff. And you just can't, you know, I went to the chiropractor, I did a lot of different things. And finally I've accepted that it's something that I want for some reason, not because I'm an idiot, but it's just something I want to show or limit my capacity or something. And that has helped a lot. It still comes and goes, but I don't let it, it's not ruling my mind anymore. That's the best part.
So the pain is who I've jailed, right? The pain is who I've jailed.
The pain isn't the problem.
No.
And the moment I think the pain is a problem, help. Because it's not the pain. It's my attachment to the pain. It's what I give. It's the one lesson. I give everything all the meaning it has. What does pain mean? What meaning am I giving it to? What is my reaction to the pain? It's not.
It still hurts.
Yeah, I understand that, but I think there's something wrong. Once again, this should not be happening.
And you know, there's a line in the course where it talks in the section of, I think it's in the Hero of the Dream section, where it says the serial adventures of the body. And it doesn't matter if it's pain, or if it's what I watched on TV today, or if it's what happened at work today, or what somebody said, or what somebody did, or it is something that captures my attention that keeps me stuck here. And none of the specifics are really that important. And I could have one and Rose has something different, and I might judge Rose because of what she has, because I don't have that. But we all have catches or hooks that keep us sucked into the world, that keep us in a place of, you know, if it wasn't for this, I could be at peace. And it's the other way around. I'm not at peace because I chose for this, and the effect of that is the fill in the line. And we need to get to the core, not the problem. And the core is that we've chosen for separation instead of for love.
And we
And I
want to be
know that's not how it's experienced in our world. Yeah, who was speaking? I didn't catch that.
and we want to be a victim.
And we require to be a victim.
My pain is worse than yours.
Correct. And again, you know, part of the observation of the world is to become aware of that's the sick story we're playing. I want to have pain so I could be an innocent victim. I mean, how sick? I mean, you can't get any sicker than that, people. And I'm not making light of it when we're going through difficult times, because that's not what we're talking about. But that's literally what the package we've bought, so that we can remain an innocent victim and have something, and the something can be the pain, to keep me from being at peace. And we don't want to work, how do I want to say it? You're going to be triggered by the pain or whatever the hook is, but we don't want to stay in what the hook is. We want to use the hook as a reminder, oh, I must have chosen wrongly. I'm stuck in the ego, which means I'm aligned with the ego. And now I can make a different choice. And use the pain, especially something that's chronic. And I know you brought up pain numerous times before, Jason, so I know that's, you know, a big hook for you. To use those experiences coming up to be a reminder, I need to ask for help. I need to ask for help. I need to ask for help. And use that as a catalyst to remember to ask for help. And don't focus so much on what the problem is as what it's a reminder for me to do to shift that energy. And, you know, the ego is all about, but it's pain. It's this going on in Washington, D.C. It's this that's happening. It's that that's happening. Let's stay focused in whatever the thing is. We'll fix it. We'll change it. We'll try to manipulate it. Not that initially we won't continue to do that. But, you know, as I always say, mop the floor if your roof is leaking. But don't forget to fix the roof, because that's where the real shift and change is going to occur. You know, in other words, if you need to go to the doctor, or if you need to, you know, do whatever you need to do in the world, don't discount that, because we're not at a place where our mind is strong enough to hold just this. But we're in the process of learning how to get to that point. All right, so keep remembering that all the hooks that we experience are coming because we aren't willing or haven't become willing to think of everything as part of me, and be willing to bring everything over here so that we can understand that we're the same instead of different. We still want to remain an individual, special, and different in regard to any conflicts that are taking place in our world. And please be very aware, I'm saying this from a place that I'm still working on all this stuff just like everybody else is. And sometime, as I think it was Denise said, you know, yeah, today I'm willing to do that, no problem, across the board. And then tomorrow something hits me and there's no way I'm going to go there. And become aware of those moments when you're not willing to let go. Not from a place of judgment or attack towards yourself, but simply as an awareness, okay, I guess I'm not quite as willing to just choose for love as I thought I was. And just smile at yourself and don't judge or attack yourself, and keep asking that he show you how to come to the point where you're willing to just let it go. All right, so again, I give you to the Holy Spirit as part of myself. I know that you will be released unless I want to use you to imprison myself. Well, why would we want to imprison ourselves if I'm too afraid of choosing for love? And why would I be afraid to choose for love? Excuse me. Because I want to maintain my individuality, my specialness, my uniqueness, and I want to be right. So to the degree that any of those are in place, again, whether it's a conscious level of that or if it's way back down here somewhere, That is what's going to run the show. And I won't be able to fully disengage from this to choose this. So it's important, again, that we become aware of the game that we've set up and that we continue to play. Because at any moment, even if you realize, okay, I'm not willing to relinquish this because I want to be an individual, I still want to be special, different, whatever it may be, I can still stop and say, okay, Holy Spirit, show me how to come to the place or the time where I can see through your eyes instead of my eyes. Now is not that moment because I'm too afraid, but I want you to show me how to get to that point. And as we continue to make that our focus in the midst of whatever kind of stuff is going on, conflict, irritation, upset, or disruption, which will continue to happen. You know, before the class, we were talking on, you know, it's like collectively, there's a whole lot of stuff being thrown in the pot the last few weeks or months. I mean, more so than normal in the world. So one person isn't as likely to go run in the corner and play their game while everybody else suffers, because everybody's being thrown into this pot, which I think initially is good in the respect that everybody's being challenged to look deeper, to look in a different way than what we normally did before, because before we pulled it off. Alrighty, so the third line, in the name of my freedom, I choose your release because I recognize that we will be released together. So when we finally get what the Course is really saying, that literally I cannot hold my brother guilty and be over here. And when we really want to be over here more than we want to be over here, our willingness to bring my brother with me will begin to dawn on me. And with that, I will release myself and I will release my brother. But I assure you, the motivation to come to that won't be because you care about what's happening to your brother. It'll be because you can't tolerate this experience any longer. And you come to a place where, all right, I don't know how to do this anymore, but I know I want peace more than anything else. And there's a lovely little line in the Course that says, to say you want the peace of God is nothing, but to mean it is everything. Only again, so much of what's still intact is the lower part of the iceberg that we're not even consciously aware of, and we're not aware that we're so hooked into. And so that's what will automatically run the show, as I said before, until it gets all cleaned out or all the icebergs break and dissipate into nothingness. So if you're praying, if you're asking, maybe even if you're doing this particular prayer, and it seems like nothing has changed in the world, what the Course would be asking us to do is to continue to work on the prayer, even if you don't get the effects of a seeming healed world after having asked to see it differently. But if you continue to do it, eventually you're going to be spending more time over here, and that's going to begin to reflect into your world as a more healed and connected place instead of a separated, guilt, sin, and fear experience. All right, so I'm going to read something that Ken had to say about this. This puts an end to the ego's principle of one or the other. It is not you or me, it is you and me. So again, I can't just take me over here. I got to be willing to drop my investment in seeing my brother in some other way than love in order to find out what the Holy Spirit's plan is. And that doesn't mean I sit here and try to visualize or conjure up how I'm going to love the idiot. That's not our job. Our job is to become aware that I've chosen to be separate from my brother. I've chosen to place a Halloween costume on him that says he's bad and I'm good. And I don't want to play from that perspective any longer. I want to find out how to see my brother through the eyes of love. And I don't know how to do that. So it's very important to know that part is not our job. Our part is to recognize I wanted this. and then to come to a realization that I've had enough of this, and then allow that answer to come through. And how it happens, when it happens, what it looks like is literally none of my business. But you will gradually begin to see the reflections of the results, and I assure you, you will like them. Recall that the separation and its world began with the thought, it is God's self or mine. And we often show you the chart where oneness, when God is on the throne, we get the same attributes that he has, which are love, peace, eternity, Christ, innocence, joy, and the same. The only thing that God cannot give us is to be the creator. Well, the Son of God decided, gosh, these are all nice, but I want to be the creator. I want to be special. I want to be different. So with that thought, we had that tiny mad idea where we thought, I want to be on the throne. And in order to be on the throne, it requires me to kick God off the throne, because there's only one throne, there's only one seat. If I'm on the throne as a choice to be special, different, and an individual, God's off the throne. And as a result of that choice comes guilt, sin, and fear, death, projection, and we're different. And now there's a God, and then there's a me. And then there's a me, and there's a somebody else or somebody else's. And we perpetually live in the separated state. The whole time, God is waiting for us to drop this to find out what that is. But again, a great deal of the process of the course is to understand having chosen this was not a good choice. It did not bring me what I thought I wanted. And when that dawns on us, at least even in a moment's time, where one instant I'm willing to choose to give it to the Holy Spirit, a big, huge difference has begun to occur, because this has less power now, and this is starting to gain power. And it's not a kind of power of energy. It's just that what I want begins to unfold, and then will begin to reflect in my world. Just like this is what we ordered, and this is what we continue to get, because this is what we want. And it's no different than ordering from the whatever kind of catalogs they have now. I guess Amazon, we'll go with that. That's online, but whatever. When we order a product, it is going to come to the door. If it comes to the door and you look at it and it's broken or it's flawed or it doesn't fit your purpose, most people would go, no, not working. I'm going to send that back. Well, most of us don't get that we were the ones that ordered what we see and what we experience in the world. And the Course is trying to help us understand what you ordered was guilt, sin, and fear, the opposite of love. And so now you're going to see it in the world. But we played this funny trick where we made ourselves the innocent victim, somebody else the problem, or the problem. All right, we'll just leave it there. Well, the problem, so we could play this silly game over here, never realizing that I would never get out of this role of the innocent victim and having a perpetrator as long as I'm aligned with the thought of the ego.
That don't Mary Ann?
Yeah.
My ego thought system now has put thoughts in my mind that, or yes, puts thoughts in my mind that it's God's fault that I went towards the ego. It's God's fault because he gave me free will. If he wouldn't have gave me free will, I wouldn't be over there. Now, isn't that sick?
That's, I would say that's sick, and I would say that's right on for most egos.
Right, yeah.
Because the ego is, if it wasn't for, and the for here would be God, and there's
Somebody
actually,
else's fault.
it's got to be somebody else. It can't be me. I'm an innocent victim.
Right.
And what the Course would say is, God doesn't even know you're over here. How could it be his fault when he only knows of love? And initially, I think that kind of information is a little bit confusing for most new people. I know it was for me. But as you become aware of the fact that it's a great thing that God doesn't know we're over here, because if he knew we were over here, he'd be part of the insanity. And then the question becomes, who's got the problem? God is still aligned with love. I'm the one over here suffering, and I can blame God all I want, but the bottom line is I'll remain in the place of suffering. It's only when I decide to relinquish this to find out what this is that I will be released from that suffering.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tricky one, and one I think all of us probably have gone through, at least occasionally through this process.
No, but God knows that we fell asleep.
Well, he knows we fell asleep, but whatever. you know,
There's no,
but the bottom line is, you know, when you're the one sleeping and you're having a really bad dream, you know, you're the one that needs to wake up.
right.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. So again, it's either God's self or mine, one or the other. We have to be the ones that choose. And what the Course is trying to help us understand is there's one throne, there's two choices. And we know if you flip a coin, you can only see one side at a time, but the other side is there. So as long, if I recognize I'm living from this point of view, because I see guilt, sin, and fear, and death, and projection, and differences, that I now have a choice to relinquish this to find out what this is. And that's where we have to be playing right now. And before we were oblivious to that as a choice. The Course is offering us an understanding that there is another choice. And Ken would often say, the best value of this Course is to help us to recognize there is another choice. Even if I'm not ready to choose it at this time, we're beginning to become aware there is another choice. And when I'm ready, I can choose to make that decision. But it's important for us to understand, once again, it's either this or this. No other choice is available from the perspective of the Course. And becoming aware by my reaction to the world, if I lose my peace or I get upset or irritated, angry, whatever, it's not that it's bad that I respond that way. It's just telling that that has to be coming from the ego choice. And if I really want to find out what it is to come from another point of view, I have to recognize I have to drop my entire storyline about my brother and myself in order to find out what his answer is. And you know, that sounds easy on paper, but it's not so easy sometimes when we're in the midst of some irritation that's going on.
But we can go back and forth.
Well, we do go back and forth.
Right.
Absolutely. Yes.
One minute we're on one side.
In any instant, we have a choice to be on one side or the other. Yeah. If I am to exist, God must be sacrificed. That's a pretty potent experience there, which means if I'm aligned with this, I lose all my identity as being special and different and in control and being right. Well, part of the bottom part of this iceberg is I still want to be all those things. That's why we chose to separate from God in the first part. We wanted to be in charge. And so now the reverse of that is I have to be willing to relinquish being in charge. Well, we're very addicted to being in charge. And that's why, given the memory or that there is another way, doesn't always lead us to choosing the other way, because that means I have to let go of something I still hold dearly until I don't. All right, if he is to exist, I am the sacrifice. And so in other words, again, it's either him or me. Which do I want? I can't maintain the character that I have maintained since literally the moment I was born, and the Course would say since the Big Bang, because it was even intact before a physical manifestation came forth. The thought system of separation is in opposition to the thought system of oneness. Okay, and it's either me or him. And in an argument or an irritation, it's me against my brother. And I need to relinquish that storyline in order to find out what this is. So I'm going to read that again. It is God's self or mine. If I exist, God must be sacrificed. If he is to exist, I am the sacrifice. Well, we're not all that excited about this plan. We want God to come down and allow me to continue being who I am as a separated son and to make my world just a little tiny bit better. That's not his plan, because he knows that none of this is real. Rather than deal with our personal sacrifice at the hands of a bloodthirsty deity, we blot the thought from our minds, project it, and make a world in which it reenact this belief over and over again. So what that means is, instead of coming back to oneness initially when this thought took place, because it was just a tiny mad idea, as it says over here, tiny mad idea of, I wonder what it would be like if I could be in charge. Of which the answer immediately came, nothing happened, come back home, but we didn't trust God. We didn't believe that he would forgive us for having kicked him off the throne so we could sit on the throne. So instead of walking back home, we pretended this no longer existed. We lived in this with guilt, sin, and fear, and then we found a way to solve the problem by projecting our guilt, sin, and fear into our brother, making ourselves an innocent victim. Again, all of that comes from my mind, and each one of us individually have that aspects of our mind of both sides of this. So when we talked earlier of the idea, I give you to the Holy Spirit as part of myself, literally what I see in my brother is what I don't want to look at in my mind. So when he says, I give you to the Holy Spirit as myself, he literally wants us to bring both of these parts of my mind to the realization that they both come from my mind that believes in separation. And when we're willing, I want to find out what it looks like or how I would experience when none of the separation exists any longer. And when he says that we play this out or reenact this belief over and over, all the conflicts, all the dualistic experiences that take place in the world are just a reenactment of that first moment when we made the choice, we got the answer to come back home, nothing happened, and we chose to continue to play the game. And so we continue to play the game of duality. My brother's the problem, or that situation's the problem, and I'm an innocent victim. But it's one big setup that keeps us stuck over here instead of dropping this to find out who we are. So we projected it, we made a world in which we reenact this belief over and over, desperately trying to point the accusing finger at others so that in the end, they will be sacrificed to God, sacrificed to God's vengeful wrath. And that, this idea of a wrathful God, the God that the Course is telling us about has nothing to do with wrath. The wrathful God, as the Course would call it, is a God of sickness. It is a God that the Son of God who separated made as a replacement of the real God of total, pure, absolute, unconditional love. But we, within the separated self, or separated choice, see a God who is wrathful. Not possible. And we see a brother that is wrathful as well, for that matter. Only by recognizing how this attempt to imprison hurts us will we be motivated to give up the insanity. So the only way we're going to be willing to even come close to dropping this is to understand that this is what we did to ourselves to perpetuate this thought system without being responsible. And the Course just whacks that out the door and says, wait a minute, dudes, this was your choice. God did not kick you out of heaven, as the Bible talks about. We chose willingly to walk out and leave heaven behind because we thought this was a better deal than being the effect of God's love, but not being able to be the creator. And this is the results we're getting. And so much of the Course is the recognition of what this setup is, so it'll eventually dawn on us that I don't want this anymore. I am willing to drop this to find out his answer instead, because I know the effects of my choice no longer serve me. All right. Only by recognizing how this attempt to imprison hurts us will we be motivated to give up the insanity, remembering we can return to God only as one son, with no thoughts of exclusion that would mar our way. So it's all or nothing. We got to bring our brother with us, or we're staying over here as the jailer for the prisoner. In the holy instant, we are released with all our brothers, returning us to the home we never left. So literally, a holy instant is a moment out of time and space where we relinquish our connection with the ego and we ask to see this through his eyes. That's only an instant. We will probably pop back in here and we will continue this journey back and forth like a teeter-tatter ride, where we'll eventually choose more and more holy instances, and we will disconnect from the ego more and more to the point where eventually we will override the dream completely and align completely with the Holy Spirit.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
When we're on the other side of the chart, we are not really with God. We go back to God, all of us at one time. So
Correct.
what is the difference between going back to God as one than being on that side of the chart? Is there a difference, or is it the same?
Yes and no. Okay, so that's a good point. What Ken would often say is connecting with the Holy Spirit would be connecting with the memory of the love of God. And he would talk about the idea, if you have a picture of, let's say, your favorite grandfather in your wallet, or your grandfather's not in the wallet, but the memory of the essence of your grandfather is there. So when we're choosing for this, we are connecting with the memory of the love of God in our mind. And as you said, all of us will collectively return to heaven at one time when everybody aligns with that. But within the context of the dream, this is the highest ability we have at this time, which is way better than this, because the effects of this will bring us the reflection of love instead of the projection of guilt, sin, and fear.
And so on that side would be like the picture, and being back with God would be like being with the person that's in the picture.
Right. Yeah, there you go, exactly. All right, so we release, but and understand again, we can't do this without bringing our brother with us. You know, we set this all up to make our brother the bad guy so we could play the part of an innocent victim, of which we really aren't an innocent victim. Well, we play the part of an innocent victim, but in order to play the part of an innocent victim, we always have to have a perpetrator. So life can never be at peace when we continue to align with the ego. It doesn't offer peace. It's only when we can relinquish our game, our story, our play, that we can find out what the realignment to what we really are will look like or be experienced as. All right, so returning us to the home we never left. And you know, many places throughout the course will talk about the fact that we never really left heaven. We never really left oneness. But to the degree we identify with the dream, the Maya, whatever we want to call it, we experience this as our reality, even though in truth it never happened. But while we're in the belief system of this, our experience will be, not only did it happen, it is happening, and I have an effect of that happening. But in truth, it never affected what truth is. We would not have it any other way, together or not. So I hope by reading this section, we get the understanding of the value of wanting to bring our brother with us. Even if right now you're not willing to do it all the time, or occasionally you do and most of the time you don't, or however that process is. But at least to understand the value of wanting to bring your brother to the other side. And as we keep asking, even if we're not ready to bring our brother with us, to be shown how to come to the point where we can bring our brother with us.
Because all you have to do is change your thinking that your brother is you.
Absolutely. And if we really got that every moment of the day, Bob, this would be an easy course.
Right.
We're not convinced of that all the time, because our internal aspect is still programmed for kill or be killed. And so, you know, my brother says something or does something, and bam, I'm back to, you know, my programmed way of responding.
So it just depends on who your brother is.
Well, yeah, and you know, as somebody said earlier, some days I can do that, some days I'm not cranked up to do that, you know, and to be able to observe ourselves even on the days where I'm, you know, attacking my brother back, and not judge it or condemn it. Just simply realize, oh my gosh, I guess I'm identified with the ego, and that must mean I'm too afraid of connecting with love right now. And simply observe what's going on. And again, that sounds like it's easy, but it's certainly not easy for us, most of us, at the beginning of this process, because we're so addicted to responding out of guilt, sin, and fear. And then we feel guilty because we responded out of guilt, sin, and fear. And then we hate ourselves because we did that. And then we just get like a snowball and we just keep rolling down the hill of guilt. But every time we stop and ask, that is shifting. And even if you come back into the world and it gets uglier out here, something has shifted within. A part of you has healed, and a deeper aspect of you is more connected with truth than it was before. Even if you don't see the results that you think you should want to see, it is happening. All right, anybody have any comments about that before I go on to the next paragraph or the next section? Nope. You're either getting it or you're totally confused, right? All right. So will the year begin in joy and freedom. There is so much to do, and we have been long delayed. Accept the holy instant as this year is born, and take your place, so long left unfulfilled, in the great awakening or the atonement. Make this year different by making it all the same. So Jesus is inviting us. Will the year begin with joy and freedom as we begin to practice this process? Because we are calling on joy and freedom instead of continuing to perpetuate the opposite, which is the choice for ego. And he's explaining to us there is much to do. You know, just understanding this intellectually is a huge, big chunk of the iceberg breaking off. But then I have to become aware of the practice of it, and to continue to practice it and put it into play in my life, and watch how the ego part of me is going to continue to try to pull me back into the illusion of the ego, because it's its job, because we have given it its job. And it's always the question, what do I want? What do I want in this moment? And I only have this moment to practice on what I'm doing. So if you blow it in this moment, the next moment will show up and you have another opportunity. Accept the holy instant as this year is born. And again, he's inviting us. You know, here it is. Now you understand it. Let's put it into practice as much as you possibly can. But don't hate yourself because you don't do it perfectly. You know, it's no different than a child in first grade when they start learning addition. They're not good at it. They're bad at it. In fact, it's, you know, they're terrible at it. But as they keep practicing it, it becomes the natural groove of being able to just go, you know, flow those calculations out of your mouth. And as soon as you get pretty good at those, what are they going to do? They're going to teach you subtraction. And then you're going to be totally baffled again. And you have to go back into that learning curve and start all over. And that doesn't mean you're stupid and you haven't learned anything. It means you've learned something, but now you're going to learn it on a higher level. And this is exactly how, in my experience, the course unfolds. I, you know, get it in a couple ways, but not in every way. And then the next one comes up and knocks me over. Then I need to pull myself up and give that one to the Holy Spirit until eventually all of them are given to him. And I don't hold on to any of them, and I don't hold myself as the one that's in charge any longer. And then he says, and then you will take the place so long unleft in the great awakening or the atonement, because the atonement is I'm aligned with this. And the atonement principle is leaving this to find out what this is. And as we become more in tune with this, that becomes who we are. just like I'm automatically respond out of the ego because that's the choice that's been put into place. As we choose, this will become the automatic response to who we are, because we will just live that. So make this year different by making it the same. So we're going to make it different because every moment is an opportunity to practice. And that will bring us to the understanding of what sameness is. All right. And to understand that people are always either responding out of love or they are calling for love. And if you were aligned with love, the only answer that you would ever offer to your brother is to love. And as that first line in that little prayer says, I give you to the Holy Spirit as part of me. I don't want you to be separate from me. I want to align with oneness with you now so I can be released from the hold of being your prisoner and keeping you here. I don't want that any longer. I want to know what true love is. All right, so whatever you do will be joyfully the same, defenselessness, loving, kind, and gentle, for it will come.
Marianne, I
Yes.
think you mentioned prisoner. I think you mentioned what you wanted to say was jailer.
Jailer, okay, yes,
Right.
you're right. We're keeping him as a prisoner, and I keep myself as a jailer. Thank you. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, so whatever you do will be joyfully the same, defensively loving, kind, and gentle, for it will come from a vision that sees God's Son as the same, with no true differences among them. But again, I don't see him as the same, or he or she or they or them. I see them through these eyes, which isn't this character's job. Because when I shift over here, I will automatically begin to see my brother as the same instead of different. Because literally we are wearing glasses that I can only see my brother as different when I'm aligned with the ego. And when I rip off those glasses and I allow true vision to be seen and experienced, then I will automatically see my brother as the same instead of different. Okay? Finally, if you and your brother are the same, then you and I are the same as well. And, you know, I often reiterate the idea of if I see my brother is guilty, I am literally seeing God is guilty and myself is guilty. I can't see my brother in any way that I don't also identify with within myself. And because we bring the God of specialness over on this side, our connection with our understanding of God will be equal to that as well. And when we align over here, we see ourselves, our brother, and God from the place of love instead of from the place of separation. And we and God are the same.
Marianne?
Yes.
Yeah, let me just try to plug in what we're talking about today with the events that happened in Washington on Wednesday.
Okay.
I am a course student. What I am looking at, hopefully, is I am, you know, the members of Congress. I am the Capitol building. I am the people charging into the building. I am the police who are trying to keep order. I am the president who is probably scared shitless in the White House and calling for love. And I am, you know, the cameramen, the newsmen, those people who are trying to make sense out of that and communicate. I am all of those things. And if, as you've been saying, the bottom line is, I want to be, and I'm not in this place, but I would like to be on a platform that says nothing happened. There's not a problem. There is. It's like typhoons happen.
Yep.
Political upheaval happens, and I see it all as a reflection of self, and it isn't a problem.
Of course it's a problem, yes. And it really doesn't matter if we're talking about what happened in Washington, D.C. this week, or if it's happening in my bathroom and I just cracked a fingernail,
You know,
all are equally the same.
that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as not putting the cap on the toothpaste.
Exactly. Exactly. So again, we have loads of places to practice. Loads of places to practice. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, Helene. It's good to hear that because, you know, just a lot going through me. So thank you.
Yes, and it's so easy to sit in our living room and watch them do whatever them is doing. And I can remember, and this was like years ago, well, probably before I started working on the course, watching the news, you know, being very judgmental and blah, blah, blah. And then this voice in my head said, Mary Ann, until you can look at that in total peace, you have work to do. Because as Helene was saying, you know, this is what I'm choosing to see. And I'm seeing it because this is a result of having chosen for the ego. Completely unbeknownst to my awareness that this is what has been set up. And again, as a good little ego, I need something to point a finger at. If I don't have something to point a finger at, I cannot be an innocent victim. And the only way I can pull myself out of the pointing the finger and the innocent victim mode is to drop it and be asking to be shown what love is.
Yeah, divisiveness is not my goal here.
And divisiveness never, ever, 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 ever works anyways, but that's a whole other story. It's again, part of the ego structure to find ways to solve the problem that can't be solved because the problem is not, has nothing to do with what's going on in the world. And again, how do you, initially wrap your head around that? It takes some time to integrate.
I appreciate some of the people that I've heard saying that we are all responsible. Each of us is responsible.
Absolutely, right. And understand.
Can I ask something?
Sure.
I'm sorry. So when people, I mean, you probably discussed this at other times, but when people die in these instances or are physically hurt, are we supposed to say that either it didn't happen or they chose for this to happen?
Well,
where are these people now? Are they living somewhere in another plane?
And that's a really good question. And it kind of depends on how high up the ladder you want to go as you look at this, okay? Obviously, in our world, in our identification, as most of us are sitting today, a life has been lost and there's value to that life. And, most of us will have some emotional experience around that, okay? Now, from the perspective of the Course, when we're really aligned completely with this, we know that none of this is real. And it's no more real than a movie that you would go to, where in a movie, people might die. And we know that that actor or actress didn't really die. They're just playing that part, okay? But we have to start with where we are. And where we are for many of us, or most of us, is that's an injustice. That was horrible. It's terrible that that had to happen under these circumstances. So you don't deny the experience that you're having in that situation. In fact, it's very important that you start with that, of really spending time with all the emotional baggage, or whatever you want to call it, that's wrapped around that. But then as you use that as a practice to say, okay, Holy Spirit, this is my experience right now. And you keep saying that none of this is real. I absolutely positively don't get that right now. But I'm willing to find out what you have to say. I'm even if it's just for a moment, I'm willing to have you show me that there's another way of seeing this situation. And as your question was, where do these people go? Well, that's again a little bit challenging, because if you understand, what we see in the world is actually no different than going to a movie theater where you see a projection on the wall. You know that your favorite actor or actress is not in the room. You're simply seeing a projection of a character. And again, in some movies, some of your favorite character might die, but that character is going to show up in another movie somewhere because he didn't really die. Okay, and literally, what is in our thought system then gets projected onto the screen of our world, that it is really no different than a projection on a screen in a movie theater. Only we think this is very solid, we think this is very real, it's important, it's valuable, blah, 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 blah. So we're not being asked to deny that experience right now. And you know, let's say it was one of your loved one that died. Of course you would, you know, write sympathy notes and you would go to the funeral or whatever you would do as a normal person in the world in that situation. But we're asked to keep asking to see it through his eyes instead of through the eyes of the ego, so that we can eventually come to the realization that this really is a dream and my real home really is here. So does that help at all? I know that's a lot.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a lot. And, you know, obviously that's not our experience right now, but as we keep asking, we will have a deeper awareness of what his vision is versus what our eyes have been programmed to see.
Oh, that we cannot die.
Well, correct. And
Only the body dies.
yes.
Well, right, I know that.
Right. And if you look at the differences between God being on the throne and us, the word eternity, there is no word of death and in oneness. Death began in the belief of separation. So we literally bought a package when we chose for the ego that has the concept of death in it. We lived in eternity, we chose a package with death. Now, obviously, we're not going to just like wipe out the concept of death in our conscious awareness, because that's just not going to happen. We're still extremely, extremely, extremely attached to concepts around death. But every time you ask to see truth, let the Holy Spirit or Jesus, you know, sit on the throne, you're literally releasing yourself from the solidity of all these attributes, and death certainly is one of the big, huge ones that we all, you know, hold on to. And whether it's a physical death or, you know, literally, you know, it's getting dark outside, our day is dying. Death encompasses this thought system in amazing ways that we're not even consciously aware of. And that's, again, what we've chosen as an effect of choosing to separate instead of align with oneness. And, you know, again, we're not going to erase the concept of death just like that. It will slowly find its way out of our awareness because we're choosing to replace it with what is truth. Okay? Right. Alrighty, so, and let all your relationships be made holy for you. This is our will. Amen. And, you know, the Course talks a great deal about what will are you aligning with? Are you aligning with the will of the ego, or are you aligning with the will of the Holy Spirit? And again, most of us, when we found the Course, did not have a clue that when I popped into this world, I was already enveloped in the belief system of the ego, unbeknownst to me consciously. And again, that goes back to the iceberg. All this was set up before I even popped into the world. So this was already intact. So everything about me is living from this thought system, unaware that this is what the thought system that's running this show is. And again, a great deal of the process of understanding the Course, practicing the Course, is to understand what the setup was so that we can become aware that this isn't working. So, and let all your relationships be made holy for you. Well, how many of us have some relationships that we'd be really happy to work with this, and you have some of them that you'd say, not today. I'm not ready to see my brother through the eyes of love. I want to hold firm. And what that literally boils down to is, I'm not ready to let go of my identity yet. Because the choice for love means there's no need. And I'm not spiritually mature to allow that to occur yet. And not to judge or attack yourself if that's where you're coming from, but simply be aware that you can't fool yourself into believing that I could be at peace if it wasn't for this thing that's happening in my experience, because that doesn't work anymore. And that, you know, that one prayer is, I am responsible for what I see. I choose the experiences that I'm having. Well, again, I don't think most people initially get all excited and jump up and down because they read that paragraph for the first time, because that's not my experience. My experience is I woke up this morning, everything was fine. I turned on the TV and oh my God, look what's happening in Washington, D.C. My peace is gone and it has nothing to do with me. Well, it doesn't have to do with you, but it does have to do with the thought system that we are aligned with. And the Washington, D.C. story is just one of the hooks that can pull us in to make us focus all our attention on they should have done this different and why didn't they do this different, and on and on and on. And as Helene was saying, in her practice, she stepped back from just the attachment of Helene and began to view it through a much wider focal point to understand that there's a whole lot more going on here than meets the eye, quite literally. All right, so as Ken says, our New Year's prayer is a resolution for every day of every year. It asks us to learn to see regardless of appearances. All relationships and situations calling for peace, not war. And you know, there's a lot of people out there that, you know, pray for peace and pray for peace and pray for peace, but they continue to do this all day long, every day, you know, including myself. I'm not putting myself above anything, but the real prayer for peace is show me who I am and show me who my brother is. Praying over here is really not going to solve the problem if indeed we really want to connect with oneness and find out what true peace is. The content of hate we hold in common disappears as we look beyond it and all its special forms to our shared content of love, the one will of God and his one Son. And again, one Son, and the Son chose to separate as one Son. Then it experienced the guilt, sin, and fear of having chosen the opposite of what it was. Then it splintered off into the world, projected into the world, into many splintered out individual little sons, of which each one of those little sons has both aspects of its mind possible within, but we're now becoming aware of that other part of our mind so that we can now make a different choice to eventually come back and connect with that oneness that is within us, that we've closed off, pretended didn't exist, so that we could play this silly game that's no longer working for us. Any comments about that? What a quiet group here today. All right, so the question always comes down to what is your goal? Is your goal to continue to live in judgment, attack, separation, blah, 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 and reinforce all of that? Or is your goal to find out what his response to what love is instead of what I have chosen to play over here? It's always the only choice in any given moment that we have. So having just said that, let's say as you're sitting here, you think, okay, my goal from now on forever is I'm going to choose for peace no matter what happens. And then, 10 minutes after you're off the call, bleh, comes out of you. And all of a sudden, oh my gosh, I thought I really just wanted love and I wanted to get rid of this judgment, and look what just spewed all over the living room. What we're then being asked to do is simply observe yourself from here to the best of your ability without judgment or condemnation, and watch how an ego that's engaged primarily with the ego choice reacts. And it's going to react out of all these things because that's the only thing it can react out of, because it is so invested in this. And basically what happens is a little teeny tiny part of your mind is saying, I want to do this different. But what happens is all this other stuff comes rushing up to the surface to prove to you, no, that's not who you are. And so our job, I guess you could say, is to continue to maintain what your choice is, even if your body continues to erupt like it has always erupted, and to pull yourself back up to choosing for this as quickly as you possibly can, with as little judgment and as attack as you can possibly conjure up, which I know initially sounds a lot easier than it is to practice. But with great amount of practice, the ability to pull ourselves back will begin to increase, and our ability to not stay in the hole will increase as well. So we want to look at the world as Jesus does, not as our eyes have been programmed to look. You know, again, Helene's story in regard to watching the news is so right on. When you turn that picture on, and again, it doesn't matter if it's the TV or walking into their boss's office and he's yelling at you or whatever form it is, we've been programmed to see it that way. That's a no-brainer. And watch the fingers come out, and but then we might as well put a gun on the finger and start shooting them, because that's really what we're doing when we're judging and attacking. That is automatic, people, only because we put it into place. Now we're undoing what we put into place by continuing to do our best to continue to choose differently. And, I used the words before, and Ken talked about it as well, of when we choose God in opposition to the ego, we're really relinquishing our identity. Well, that doesn't sit real well for us who are very addicted to this character called me. But the beauty of this process is you're not going to go from here and poof, you're gone and you're in oneness. It's going to be a process where slowly this becomes less dense, this becomes more full, I guess you could say. And that the process will simply be back and forth until one day this is really completely who and what you want to be. But there will be a struggle sometimes back and forth, just like being on a teeter-totter ride. But I think, for myself, there was certainly many times of, what the hell is this Course in Miracles talking about anyways going on? And I'm sure most of us have either thrown the Course across the room or questioned it along the journey. But for some reason, when I really evaluated it and took it within, somehow the concept that this is taking me to love always rose to the surface. Even if I didn't get this, even if it didn't make any sense, even if it was so much easier to just go with the stream of the ego, a part of me knew somehow this is taking me to a place that I really want to go to. And, it's like, again, if you go to a concert and you love the way somebody played the piano and you're, oh, wow, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. And you want to learn how to do that. You don't just sit in your chair and say, I want to learn how to do this. I want to learn how to do this. You have to go out and buy that piano, get the music, get a teacher, and then begin to practice. And every time you practice, you're getting better at it. And even after you practice and perfect that first piece, they don't say, okay, come back and play that again. The next pile of music comes forth for you to practice again. And then you feel like you haven't got any of it again. And that's very similar to the way this gets played out. Only with this process, you don't have a lot of physical solidness to hold on to. It's sort of like you're groping in the darkness, other than occasionally a reflection of love will show forth. And as we do it more and more of those will show up, and that will encourage us to move forward. But it's initially, we don't have a whole lot to hold on other than, the call of love in our heart that keeps us going with this course, even at times when you want to throw it in the garbage. And so this New Year's resolution is really for our benefit. And understand, we're really not going to do this because we care about them that much. We're going to do this because it'll eventually dawn on us that releasing my brother is releasing me. I cannot get out of jail as the jailer unless I release the prisoner. And I've made the prisoner be the prisoner on top of that. Not a nice thing, people, not a nice thing. We've literally made our brother guilty so we could play the part of an innocent victim rather than face the fact that we made a choice that isn't a good choice. And now we're having another opportunity to make that choice because it is really what we want in opposition to what we're experiencing right now. And eventually we will realize that the thought system of separation, the world that arose from it, and our personal world that arose from that thought system, it was all made up. That's where this is eventually going to take us. But we got quite the ride to go on until that happens. And where did that, what he said? Oh, yes, the very first line that we read, it says, "This is a time in which a new year will soon be born from the time of Christ. I have perfect faith in you to do all that you would accomplish." Nothing, that's not what it was. Huh. Well, basically what it said was we have lots of work to do. Oh, all right, it was in the next paragraph, 11, where it says, "So will the year begin in joy and freedom. There is much to do, and we have long been delayed." Well, we literally have been delayed of making this choice since the Big Bang. So that's a long delay. And yet now we're starting to recognize there is another possibility. There is a way out of the insanity that we have chosen to live our life in. And again, that idea, I'm going to read it again because it really does sum up the whole package. So this New Year's resolution is really for our benefit because we will feel better. When I choose over here, I release myself and my brother, and I feel better. My brother will feel better too, because literally when I hold my brother here, I'm saying to him, "You're a useless piece of shit and you belong here." Sorry if anybody's offended by the language, but literally that's what's going on. So this year, we want to, let's see, and eventually we will realize that the thought system of separation, the world that arose from it, this is the world that arose from it, our personal world and how we react to the world arose from that thought system, and all of it was made up. When I used to go to the foundation, Ken initially had a chart like this, and it was on a blackboard. And towards the end of the class, he would get out the eraser and he would start erasing the chalkboard. And I could remember being very consciously aware. I didn't want him to erase the chalkboard because that was me. I didn't want to be erased. And I was very aware that that was really what was going on. And that really represents that I want God to come down and fix my world. I really don't want who I am to be erased so that I can find out what he has to give me. And again, that's the resistance. That's the wall. That's our not willingness, our inability to be willing is represented by the idea that I'm not really ready to relinquish the character called me. And so that's why it's so important for us to be aware of how strongly we play the part of the hero of the dream, and how all the things within our world, and it doesn't matter if it's something good or something bad that draws us in, it keeps the hero alive. And again, as Helene was saying, she stepped back from the hero of the character called Helene and started to see the picture with all its facets, not just the focal point of Helene in relationship to the experiences that were going on TV. And we're all being asked to continue to step back, see the world from a larger vantage point, not so eye-focused, but be very aware that the setup of the ego was, this is who I am, and this is my problem. So don't be surprised if that doesn't continue to be the forefront of your experience on a daily basis. But again, each time you ask, you're making this more solid and this less and less solid. And as many of the people that have been coming for some time begin to use words like, you know, I'm starting to see this more subtly. I don't have to wait for, you know, the thing going on in Washington before I realize I've lost my peace. Just little itty bitty tiny shifts can bring me to an awareness of, wait a minute, what's going on here? I need to ask for help. And again, that's the practice. And people who are in that place, it's only because of the work that they've done. So anybody have any quick comments before we close? Okay, I know a couple of you got on the call a little bit late, so I want to make the share something. I got an email from Don's wife saying that he had had a stroke earlier this week and that he is in the hospital. Unfortunately, she cannot see him or talk to him, which I'm sure has to be very challenging and very difficult. And that I guess he was progressing and doing well and then took a turn for the worse the last day or so. So please hold your thoughts and prayers for Nancy and Don, and hopefully we can turn this around unless it's time for whatever. So, all right. And hi, Harvey. Nice to see your little face.
He was offended when you were using that tough language.
What was that?
Harvey was offended when you're using that tough language.
Oh yeah, I know he was. I'm not. No. All right, so I'm going to do my usual, turn down or mute everybody, and we'll say our prayer, and then I'll stay open after that. Okay, so everybody take a nice big deep breath and let it all go. Forgive us our illusions, Father, and help us to accept our true relationship with you, in which there are no illusions and where none can ever enter. Our holiness is yours. What can there be in us that needs forgiveness when yours is perfect? The sleep of forgetfulness is only the unwillingness to remember your forgiveness and your love. Let us not wander into temptation, for the temptation of the Son of God is not your will. And let us receive only what you have given, and accept but this into the minds which you created and which you love. Amen.
Thank you, Marianne. Thank you, everybody.
You are so welcome. Glad to have you here and look forward to seeing you next time.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Marianne.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Oh, Marianne, I wanted to let you know
Thanks,
about something.
Marianne.
Sure. Okay. Bye.
So when we do chat in here,
Yes.
you can also share files.
Yes.
So if you wanted to like send your whatever that is behind you,
The chart.
the chart behind you, or one of your charts, you know,
Yes.
you could do that, and it might be a more interactive experience for people.
Well, normally what I do is send one to everybody so that they can make a copy and hopefully have it in front of them. Because I'm not real